Next to Great Wall of China, Hari Ravi Kumar, we can see from space. Nim
I'll
Hesro,
just put off the video
yeah,
because
no, next to Great Wall of China, your name
I'm,
is the next one we can see from space. The font size.
so I'm putting the Gita Bhasha in my other computer, so I
Oh,
can. So I'm putting this off. So anyway, I'm
okay.
here.
We are at time, sir.
Yeah, we can start.
We can start. Harihi Om Om Bhurбhuvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Yagnasya Ghoshadasi Pratyushtagam Raksha Pratyushta Arataya Preyamagādishana Bhariracha Manuna Krita Swadaya Vitashtat Avahamti Kavaya Purastat Devebhyo Justamiha Barhirasade Devanaam Parishutamasi Varshavriddhamasi Deva Barhirmatvanmakmatiryak Parvaterabdya Samachepta Te Marisham Deva Barhishatavalasham Virohas Sahasravalasha Vivayagam Ruhema Prithivya Samprachapahi Susambrita Atva Sambaram Yadityairasma Sindranyai Sannahanam Pushate Gram Tingratnatu Tate Mastadim Drasyatva Bahubhyamudyatse Brahaspate Murdna Haramurvam Tariksham Devangamamasi. This is the second Anuvaka of Krishna Yajurveda. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So yesterday we stopped at this verse 42. We'll briefly visit it one more time. Sankaro narakayaiva kulagnana kulasya patanti pitaro hyesham lupta pindodaka kriyaha. Because of this confusion, Sankara is mixing up an anarchy. It paves the way to hell for the destroyers of the family, for the kulagnana. They are the people
You
who
have to share
destroy
your
the family.
screen.
You can't see the screen?
No,
Oh,
you have to share your screen.
okay. Where is that screen? Can you see the screen now? Okay, good. So Sankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya patanti pitaro hesham lupta pindodaka kriyaha. The Sankara is the anarchy paves the way to hell for the destroyers of the family, as well as for the family itself. People who did that and also for the family. Kulagnanam are the ones who destroyed the family and also the Kula itself. So because of that, Patanti Pitaro Hesham, their ancestors, their Pitris will have their downfall then because of Lupta Pindodaka Kriyaha, without the offering of the rice ball and water. So this is part of the post-death ceremony. It keeps on going. And Arjuna is talking about Lupta Pindodaka Kriyaha, water and rice ball. This is usually done in the Tarpana every new moon day and also every Sankramana. And it's probably during and every Shraddha we do this kind of offering of this Pinda and water. So basically he's talking about because of deprived of those things, these things happen. They will cause the downfall of all the ancestors. Typically, to do this, you should know the name of your father or parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. When a lot of confusion has happened, people will not even know the names of their ancestors. So that's the reason. But this Sankara, this mixing up, at that time he is talking about it. And if you notice it, this has become very, very tight. Actually, maybe it was more of a mixing up then rather than now. Now, Sankara, Varna Sankara was for the Varna, but now so many subsects are there. Like if I'm an Iyengar, if I'm a Vadakale Iyengar, if I marry a Tengale Iyengar, that will be considered mixing up. Or if I married another Brahmin of another subset, it will be considered mixing up. You can see how deep it has been practiced. I'm not judging anything, but I'm just making observation. You all must have heard 23andMe. 23andMe is if you send your saliva, they will basically do analysis of this SNPs, small nucleotide variations in that, and then they find cousins for you. If other people have done, they can find if there are cousins, even if they match of 0.2% or 0.5% or 1% like that. So in my case, I got it done about 8 years ago. They found 500 cousins for me so far. It depends on the people who have used this S23andMe. They have sent their sample. Out of 500, believe it or not one of them are Kannada people. Every one of them either Iyengar or Iyer names. It's amazing for 500. And then only one came as Renu Kelly. So this was an oddball. And she contacted me because she was trying to find some relatives. And she turned out to be in Ohio itself. And of course, Kelly, her parents are white Americans. And she said that she was adopted from an orphanage in Bangalore. So she's probably could be some kind of a relative. So it's interesting how tight the not mixing up was there. So I was surprised to see not even one. If any of you have not done, especially people who are in the US can do this, it will be very nice. It costs only $99. You just have to send your saliva and you get a lot of information on that. Okay. So let's go to the new slide today. New Doshai Retai Kulagnanam Varna Sankara Karakaihi Utsadyante Jati Dharmaha Kula Dharmashta Shashvataha. He is telling that this is the Shashvataha, it's lots of age-old things, age-old practices of family. Will have, and also of community. It is your jati and also of your own family. Jati dharmaha, then as a kula dharmaha. So kula is like your clan, and jati is your community. So all those there are always variation within your own dynasty, your own clan versus the community you belong to. So all of them will be lost. Because of what? Because of this terrible deed of killing the killing happens because of the confusion created, because of the anarchy in the society. So these are all lost. So the age-old practices of family and community are ruined by the terrible deeds of these killers who create anarchy in society. So doshai retai kulagnanam
दोषैरेतैर्कुलग्नानां
varna sankarakaihi
वर्णसङ्करकारकैः
उत्साध्यन्ते जाति धर्माः
उत्साध्यन्ते जातिधर्माः
कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः
कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः
उत्सन्न कुलधर्माणां मनुष्याणां जनार्दन नरके नियतं वासो भवतीत्यनुशुश्रुमा. So then he says what happens because of this, because of what we hear, if this kind of things happens, if all these values are lost, what happens is we have heard We have bhavati iti anushushruma. We have heard what happens. What happens is, O Janardana, for narake niyatam vasaha. By doing this kind of thing, we have lost family values, are consigned to hell. There are two versions. This is a newer version which Hari found. Is narake niyatam vasaha or vaso. Actually, the older version we have is narake aniyatam vaso, because the way it goes, it can go either way. So narake aniyatam vaso means even for indefinite time. Okay, you even translate it as they will be indefinitely, eternally condemned to hell. But here it is narake niyatam vasaha. Vaso, that means for a certain amount of time, a prescribed amount of time, they will be condemned to hell. So that's what she's saying. So both variations are there. This is in the old version when it said they will be eternally condemned to hell. When they said aniyatam vasaha, that is actually quite contrary to Hindu concept. Hindu concept, both the heaven and hell are transient. Only moksha is permanent. So it is like for the good deeds, you get some time to spend in the heaven, depending on how many brownie points you have. And for all the bad things you have done, you get punished in hell, in the Yamaloka. Then it is between Devaloka and Yamaloka. After that, you come back. But only when you are liberated, then you don't come back. That is liberation or moksha. So that is, I think this narake niyatam vasaha is more appropriate. It's in coordination with the way Hindu concept is. So utsanna kula dharmanam
Utsanna dharmanam
manushyanam janardana
manushyanam janardana
narake niyatam vaso
narake niyatam vaso
bhavati ityanu
bhavati ityanu.
With all these things, he comes to climax here. Aho patamahat papam kartam vyavasita vayam yadrajya sukha lobhena hantam svadanamudhyataha. Oh, alas, what kind of sin we are about to commit. We are just for the sake of some comfort in Rajya, for kingdom and comfort, just for the gaining of those things. We are killing Svajanam. We are killing our own Svajanam. See how many times Arjuna uses the word Svajanam. So he says that it is, alas, by getting ready to kill our own people, we are on the verge of making terrible mistake merely out of our greed for kingdom and for pleasure, royal pleasures. Aho batamahat papam
Aho vatamahat papam
kartam vyavasita vayam
kartum vyavasita vayam
yadrajya sukha lobhena
yadrajya sukha lobhena
hantam svajanamudhyataha.
hantum swajanamudyathaha.
Now he says, Edimam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtrarane hanyuhu tanme kshemataram bhavet. So he says, because of doing all these things, it would be better, Edimam apratikaram, without showing any kind of resistance and letting go not even holding any arms, ashastram shastrapanayah, without any weapons. Let the Rashtra Sarane Hanyuhu. Let the Dhritarashtra said, the Kaurava said, let them kill us. That is better. Tanme Kshemataram Bhave. That is much better. It would be a lot better if the armed Kauravas were to kill me in the battle while I remain unresisting and unarmed. This is the kind of he's willing to be killed by them and not even going to resist in any fashion without even holding any weapon. So edimam apratikaram
Yadi mama pratikaram
ashastram shastrapanayah
ashastram shastrapanayah
dhartarashtrarane hanyuh
dhartarashtrarane hanyuhu
Tanme kshemataram bhavet.
तन्मे क्षेमतरं भवेत्.
Having said that, then Sanjaya says, concludes this chapter. This is next verse is told by Sanjaya. Now after that he has kept quiet. Sanjaya uvacha eva muktvarjuna sankhe rathopasta upavishat visrijya sasharanchapam shoka samvigna manasaha. Having told like that, having said these things, Arjuna cast aside visrijya sasaram chapam, cast aside his bow and arrows and sank down in his chariot, overwhelmed by grief. Shoka samvigna manasaha is overwhelmed by his grief. So basically, Ratavapasta upavasite, sat down, it reclined to the letting go his weapon, and in a sad, overwhelmed with a sad face and grief. Eva muktvarjuna sankhe
एवमुक्त्वार्जुनः सङ्ख्ये
Ratopasta upavishat
रथोपस्थ उपाविशत्.
visrijya sasaranchapam
विसृज्य शशरं चापं
Shoka samvigna manasaha.
शोकसंविघ्नमानसः.
Sankhya means the battlefield, in the middle of that. So this concludes the first chapter. So Sanjaya is saying this. What we need to observe here is all these things Arjuna was saying about what happens and everything, the post-death rites, not doing that, and all of them condemned to hell, all those things, how the saying, all these are words of Arjuna. These are not, it is in Bhagavad Gita, but it is not words of Krishna, it's words of Arjuna. What he is talking about, that was the prevailing tradition of those times. And actually, even today, it is, at least in my case, I know I grew up in a family which was very much bound to these things. My father was very serious about it. And although my age is 71, my anthropological age is 114. How you determine your anthropological age is to your age, you should add the average age of your parents when you were born. So in my case, they were 43, average age of my parents. You add 43 to 71, so I am actually 114 years old. So that is, so this kind of practice was very much followed in our home. And so I think out of 25 years I lived there, 20 years I lived home, 5 years in the institute hostel. So in those 20 years, I must have eaten many Shraddha Bhojanams, because they were always, there was something or the other going on, and all these Tarpanas and Sankramana Tarpana, Amavasya Tarpana, all these Shraddhas. So that is very strictly followed even 50 years ago. And I'm sure even today, I'm not criticizing or anything, making observation. Even today, it is it's very much in our culture. It is even if when it comes to, even if they are not practicing other things, when it comes to this thing, people are very serious. I am a religious council for our temple, and I see many people really are very much into doing these things, at least to the extent of whatever they can do. And at one time, I even said that the kind of meal they eat in this Shraddham is very special. It is very, very healthy, very rich, because that is supposed to be a feast, and all the ingredients used in that are very good. And none of them are, they were all probably whatever the ingredient was used at that time when they came up with this. So although none of the, you won't see potato, you don't see tomato, those kind of cabbage, none of those more recent with the carrot, you don't see those vegetables, but all they were using were kind of sweet potato, the plantain flower, plantain stem, and different variety of things, bitter gourd. So it's actually very healthy food, lot of ginger, lot of things which are more common to India at that time. So I was even making a joke that because nowadays we have all sorts of theme restaurants, so we should also open a Shraddha Bhojanam restaurant. So people can perform this and send the whoever has to go, instead of feeding them this very difficult, so they can even send them, buy them a coupon to have lunch, Bhojanam in Shraddha Bhojanam restaurant. And I'm sure it can be popular in America also, in New Jersey area and Bay Area, especially in many parts of Bangalore. So I was thinking like that. So this is such an age-old practice. In Mahabharata, it comes. It is not just Arjuna only saying this. In fact, after the completion of war in Anushasana Parva, Bhishma gives lots of knowledge to describe different things to Yudhishthira, how to rule every details. He give every aspect. In that the whole section, he talks about what kind of preparations he should do for the Shraddham, for the ancestors. So definitely that practice was prevailing during those times, just like it is now. Actually, it might have been even more deeper then. So he goes on a full set of things, full set of menus. Of course, a lot of them were, he goes even to the extent of if you give them meat of rhinoceros, they will be satisfied for 9 months. He said, gives kind of grading. He gives what kind of food do you offer, how long it sustains them. So that is very much in our culture. And interestingly, you might have heard of Yaksha Prashna, the conversation between Yudhishthira and Yaksha. Yaksha asks him many questions, different questions. Yudhishthira answers very nicely. And one of the questions asked is, when is the good time to do Shraddha? That's the question. Typically, we always do on the very Tithi. They had passed away every year on that day. But in Yaksha Prashna, the question is, when is the good time to do this? Yudhishthira answers, any time we find a qualified Brahmin, Vedavit Brahmin, who is not just a Brahmin, who is well studied, who is knows Vedas completely. At that time, anytime you come across a person like that, that's a good time to do, you see. So that shows how much value was attached to this during that time. So this is a lot of this is part of our culture, and but we have to remember that it will be interesting to see how Krishna addresses that in the rest of when he comes to talk about these things. So that's just keep this in mind, that it was very important at the time. Also, it's important even today for many people. So this concept is there. And as I mentioned that my father was very much into it. He would show our horoscopes, astrologer, and he was not so much interested in the typical question of those times of 1970s, 60s was, do they have foreign chance? So we were all so eager to how the Videsha Mukti, so live abroad. So that's one of the questions asked to astrologers. My father never asked that question. The question he would ask is, we are 4 brothers. To all 4 brothers will follow this. We'll be doing Shraddha, Tarpana, all these things. So he was very serious about it. It's kind of, because it is called Shraddha. Very name Shraddha means Shraddhaya Kartavyam, Shraddhaya Kritam. You do with very earnest, sincere faith in it. That's why it becomes Shraddha. In fact, the school I went to, National High School, the motto is Shraddhahi Paramagatihi. That is for, you should have a very sincere interest in anything you want to do. That is Paramagatihi. I used to read it as Shraddhahi Paramagatihi because we were so much into that culture. And interestingly, as I told about Sankara mixing up of caste has become more serious. I said only even the subsects within a given Varna was not mixing up. It so happened that you are going to hear a little bit of Koti Sri Krishna Gita now. So when I fell in love with my wife in Indian Institute of Science, she happened to be not an Iyengar. She happened to be Madhva. I mean, I didn't even know when I fell in love what caste or what subcaste she was. So it is love at first sight. Basically, when I proposed to my dad, I want to marry her, his first question was, no, because he's not our subset. It's Varna Sankara. He quoted Arjuna's verses, Sankaro Naraka Yaiva Kulagnanam Kulasyacha Patanti Pitaro Shesham Lupta Pindo the Kriyaha, quoted it. And his first comment was, what will people think of me? Because I am highly respected for my tradition, keeping up the Sri Vaishnava Odagale Iyengar tradition. I said, people know you so well, Dad. I don't think in any way I can bring you down by my act because of whatever my act. I don't think it should in any way. People will never um, will have any issue about you because you are so solid, so sincere in your following. Then the next question he asked me was, what about all this our Brihaspati, our Vadyar who comes for our home to um, officiate these things? What if he refuses to come because of what you did? He may say that I don't want to help you anymore. You got a son like that. So I said I can go and request him, not give any problem to my father. It is my thing. And I have seen our family, what they are conduct interracial weddings in Bangalore. So I did not think that he would have any problem at all. Um, so it is, I assured my father that I can go and talk to him. He probably thought that I can convince him. Then he said, what about the very institution we belong to? We belong to one Andaman ashramam. It is a Srirangam based Andaman ashramam. He was actually, Andaman Swami was very, very close to my father. So what would he say if you do this? Then I said, I can, same way I can talk to him also, because one of the foremost disciples of Tirukkodandai Andavan was N.S. Krishnan of International Instruments, and he had married a Swedish lady, and they always sit in the front row whenever he's there. So I did not think there would be any issue, so I can convince him. I can get his permission, I told him. So, okay, he agreed for all those things. Now, one more thing is left, he said. You will convince the society won't look down on me. You will convince our family what they are. You will also, you think our Swami also will be fine. But I want you to get permission from one more set of people, he said. Who are they? I told them. I thought he was telling maybe his close relatives, his cousins, or something like that. But he said, we know our ancestors for 50 generations. So he said, because of what you do, it's the downfall of all of them. So you have to get permission from them. I said, then he quoted this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Huldi Pitaraha, Katanti Pitaro Shesham, Lukta Pindodaka Kriyaha, because of mix up all those things. Then I said, there's no way I can go and talk to them because they're not here. So basically, at that time, I came to the conclusion. I didn't mention him when he quoted the Gita words that this is in Gita, but it is told by Arjuna, not Krishna. So he said, no, you're doing Charuvaka. Charuvaka is a atheist, so you're talking like a Charuvaka. So at that time, I decided that I cannot get his permission. I may be able to get only his forgiveness. So that's exactly what happened. I went ahead and married my wife, and he forgave me. So my guess was right, at least. So that is a little bit of Koti Sri Krishna Gita for you. So this is part of that, shows how important this is in our culture. And interestingly, there was a wedding going on here, and after a nice lunch, there's a big gathering of people. This was a Sanketi family wedding, and they were discussing. We had just finished wedding lunch, but they were discussing how to do Shraddha. It kind of shows how much it is with us. So with that story, so we will. Did we do this shloka? We should do that. Sanjaya Uvacha
Sanjaya Uvacha
Eva Muktvarjuna Sankhe
Eva Muktvarjuna Sankhe
Rathopasta Upavishat
Rathopastha Uphavishat
Visrijya Sasaran Chapam
Visrijya Shasharam Chapam
Shoka Samvignamanasaha.
Shoka Samvignamanasaha.
So they say what goes around comes around, right? So this is 30 years later. What happened to me is my daughter was doing a World Teach program in Namibia, and that was 2008. So between 78 to 2008, she said, "This is my last year. Why don't you visit Namibia?" So in November, I visited. Before visiting, she sent me an email. Dad, I want you to know I'm very, very close to a Namibian man here. Then I answered her, "Are you asking me or telling me?" She said, "I am telling you." Then I said, "Congratulations." So what goes around comes around. So it's kind of interesting. So this is, we concluded this. Usually every chapter concludes with calling Bhagavad Gita as Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. So we will do that. It's not in the original, but it was added on. So it kind of concludes like that. And it also identifies the name of the chapter that it completed. Even that name of the chapter was not there in the original. So this chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So it is yoga is typically for something very good. But in this case, his association is yoked with grief or despair. But in a way, we can say even that is good. Because of that, you are able to get rest of the Bhagavad Gita. If Arjuna did not have the Vishada, if he had gone ahead and fought like anybody else, we won't be having this meeting today. So it is because of Vishada of Arjuna, we got in Vishada in great detail, we got this beautiful philosophy book for us. So we'll do that anyway. Om Tat Saditi.
Om Tat Saditi
Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu
Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu
Upanishatsu
Upanishatsu
Brahma Vidyayam
Brahma Vidyayam
Yoga Shastre
Yoga Shastre
Shri Krishnarjuna Samvade
Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade
Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama
Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama
Prathamodhyayaha.
Pratamodhyayaha.
Yeah. And another observation I like to make here, Hari and I were discussing this. Yoga comes about more than 90 times. Yoga word comes in Bhagavad Gita. The only chapter you don't have the yoga word is in chapter 1. Only it is in the concluding part. It is not part of the Bhagavad Gita. The yoga comes. So in a way, it is it's kind of a coincidental. When you don't have yoga, you get all confusion. Your mind gets disturbed. Yoga is to be united with something good, something supreme. That is what typically yoga means. So when you don't have yoga, you become a ayogya, kind of. So all these things come. So we'll conclude this now, and we somehow still some time, so we can start chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called Sankhya Yoga, but we translate it as Sankhya is usually translated only as Gnana Yoga, but we kind of made it as like Rama Krishna, like the Sankhya Yoga. So it is Sankhya and Yoga. So Sankhya is knowledge, Yoga is Karma Yoga. So it is both Sankhya and Yoga, wisdom and action. So that's how we labeled this chapter. Sanjaya uvacha tam tata kripayavistam ashruporna kulekshanam vishidantamidam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. So Sanjaya is telling to Dhritarashtra that when he, after this, to him, who was overcome with grief, kripaya avishtam, is also tearful, eyes were full of tears, ashrupurna kulekshanam. So in grieving, vishidantam, he was in pathetic state. So idam vakyam, vishidantam, idam vakyam, uvacha madhusudanaha. These words, Madhusudana is Krishna, spoke to Arjuna. Sanjaya uvacha
Sanjaya Uvacha
tan tatha kripaya vishtam
Tam Tatha Kripayavishtam
ashrupurna kulekshanam
Ashrupurna Kulekshanam
vishidantam idam vakyam
Vishidantamidam Vakyam
uvacha Madhusudanaha.
Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
So Sri Bhagavan uvacha kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam anaryajustam akirtir karamarjuna. So he's asking kutasva kashmala. What is it? Kutaha va kashmalam. Kashmalam is what is this garbage? What is this nonsense like that we use that, right? So kutaha tva kashmalam, we translate it as impurity, timidity, faint-heartedness. Typically in American language, with somebody, hey, what kind of garbage are you saying? So kashmalam like that. So kutastva kashmalam, where is this kind of uh, timidity, faint-heart? This is uh, garbage. We also translate it as garbage. So what is this garbage? Vishame samupastitam, in this in this hour of it's a terminal hour, right? Vishame samupastitam, it's an important critical moment. It is the battlefield. This is not something 3 days before the battlefield. In this critical moment, what you are doing is anarya justam. It is ignoble. It is ignoble to think like this. Kirtikaram, it brings ill fame to you, and asvargyam. So you will not be fit for heaven. Typically, the concept was virasvarga. So if a warrior fights in the battle and dies, he will reach heaven. So the battle was one of the ways of getting to heaven quickly. It's like a fast exit to heaven. So you're not fit for any of these things now, right? You are missing all that. How can you lose heart in this critical moment, a hour of crisis? This is disgraceful, kirtikaram, ignoble, anaryam, then unworthy of higher realms. Sri Bhagavan uvacha
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha
kutastva kashmalamidam
Kutastva Kashmalamidam
vishame samupastitam
Vishame Samupasthitam
anaryajustam
Anaryajustam Asvargyam
akirtir karamarjuna.
Akirtir Karamarjuna.
And continues, Klaibhyam ma smagama partha naitatva ipapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbhalyam chaktvottishta parantapa. It is Klaibhyam ma smagamaha partha naitatva ipapadyate. So it is, this is not right for you, right? Klaibhyam ma smagama partha. This cowardice is not right for you. So this is Kshudram Hridaya, that this is weakness of heart is so low, right? Kshudram is kind of considered the lowest thing is weakness of heart. So leave this weakness of heart. Tyaktva Uttishta Parantapa. Parantapa is the one who can annihilator of enemies. So it's addressing with making him look very great. Is arising him. You are the annihilator of enemies, and get rid of this weak-heartedness. It is Kshudram. It is, and Tyaktva Uttishta, get up and fight, he says. So if you notice it, so many cardiologists are working on making heart better. You have artificial heart, fixing the valve, all those things. But nobody is working, no physician is working on how to get rid of the weakness of heart. That we have to do ourselves. There is no medicine for that. Right? So don't be a coward, Arjuna, he says. This is not right for you. Arise, awake, Uttishta, and abandon your timidity, O destroyer of enemies, Parantapa. Klaibyam ma smagama partha
Klaibyam ma smagama partha
naitatva upapadyate
naitatva yupapadyate
kshudram hridaya daurbhalyam
Shudram hridaya daurbalyam
tyaktvottishta parantapa.
Tyaktvottishta parantapa.
So of course Arjuna answers back. He's not going to give up so easily. His state of mind. Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sankhye dronancha madhusudana yushubi pratiyotsyami pujarhar varisudana. He says, katham, in the Sankhya, in this battle, how can I kill Aham Bhishma? How can I kill Bhishma and Drona? Or how can my Yushubi Pratiyotsyami? How can we bow them with my weapons like arrows and bows, right? They are worthy of worship. Pujarhar Varisudana. How can I uh, shoot arrows at them, right? How can I shower arrows at them? Ishubihi Pratyotsami. How can I shower arrows at them? These are the people I should be bowing down and worshipping. So how can I do that? How can I battle Bhishma and Drona because they are worthy of my worship? How can I shower arrows at them? Arjuna uvacha
Arjuna uvacha
katham Bhishma maham sankhye
katham bhishmamaham sankhye
dronancha madhusudana
dronam cha madhusudana
ishubhi pratiyotsyami
ishubhih pratiyotsyami
pujarhar varisudana.
pujarhar varisudana.
So we'll do one more sloka and so all the verses so far they are all what is called Anushtup Chandas. They were all four lines, each line with 8 syllables. So total 32 syllables. That is Anushtup or Shloka meter it is called. It is one line more than the Gayatri meter. Gayatri meter is three lines with 8 syllables each, 24 altogether. Shloka is the next meter, that is Anushtup, it is 4. But here it gets into a different meter. This is it's a little lengthier meter, you can see that. So, Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan Preyo bhoktam vaikshamapi haloke hatvarta kamanstu guru nihaiva punjiya bhogan rudira pradigdan. I think this one, if I count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. This is Trishtup meter. Trishtup meter, that means it has 11 syllables on each line, so altogether 44 syllables. In the Shloka meters, typically they come like instruction, whereas when you go to the Trishtup meter, it makes it a little bit musical. Even a donkey like me will have to sing it a little bit. So Guru Nahatva hi Mahanubhavan Shreyo Bhoktam Vaikshamapi Haloke Hatvarta Kamanstu Guru Nihaiva Punjiya Bhogan Rudira Pradigdan. Killing these elders, gurus, these are like the teachers, elders. If I kill those noble elders for the sake of worldly gains, Vaikshamapi Bhoktam, to enjoy the early gains. Hatvarta Kamast, by what will happen is my pleasure, all my pleasure will be soaked in their blood. Punjiya Bhogan Rudhira Pradigdhan. It will be stained with blood. All my victory, all my joy, all my pleasure will be stained with that. So instead of that, I'm going to Shreyo Bhoktam Bhaiksha. I can become a Bhikshuka. I can just become better to live on alms. Go and beg for food is better than killing them, and enjoy the pleasure that are stained with their blood. So it's a very, very powerful way of saying he's happy to become. In the first chapter, he was happy to give up his life itself, let them kill. Now he is happy to just live as a beggar, right? That is better. He says, Shreyo Bhoktam Vaiksham Apiha Loke. In this world, I can go around and beg and eat. Okay. Guruna Hatva Hi Mahanubhavan.
गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान्
Shreyo Bhoktam Vaiksham Apiha Loke.
श्रेयो भोक्तुम् भैक्ष्यमपि हलोके
Hatvartha Kamastu Guru Nihaiva.
हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव
Punjiya Bhogan Rudira Pradigdan.
भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्.
Okay, I will stop here for Sherry on the top with Hari or anybody. Any discussion for another 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes? Any questions or any discussion, any comments? Hari?
Yeah, I think till the except for a couple of verses, what you just covered now, till the 10th shloka of the second chapter is almost like one unit, and the instruction proper begins at 2:11. So it's in a way it's kind of unit, and also I think that's a very good point you made about people saying this is there in the Bhagavad Gita, but they don't realize who has said this in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna's words are the words of a confused person. So therefore, just saying it's there in the Mahabharata, it's there in the Gita, is not too much use because you have to know who is saying it.
So the chapter 1, a lot of people say that there were only two concerns, they say. Arjuna was feeling bad to kill the relatives, which is true, it's a sajanam. And he's also concerned about the chaos it creates in the society. They usually stop at that. Not many people talk about his third concern. In my opinion, his third concern was the most difficult one. Because wars happen, people die, society confusion happens. But he was telling that what's going to happen to all the departed ancestors. So there are three of his concerns here. Usually not just two. So somehow the third one is generally ignored. And we cannot say much because most acharyas didn't do bhashyam for chapter 1. So we can't tell a whole lot of things. But at least in general conversations, I have seen people talk about only two concerns of Arjuna. The third one, they somehow think it is pushed under carpet. Nobody talks. Actually, that is the toughest of the concerns to address. What will happen to ancestors? Right? That is the toughest one of this. We will see tomorrow how Krishna shatters that down very quickly. But typically people avoid even talking about that. And, so I think.
Another interesting, I mean, when we look at the way Krishna responds to these comments, one can think he's a person who rattles the cages. He's, in fact, long back, we had co-written an article called Shock Treatment in Bhagavad Gita. It
Yeah.
was published in Bhavan's journal, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about
So,
it.
yeah, so many years ago, we had some shock
Yeah.
treatment. So when we think about it, we'll say Krishna is being very almost like irreverent, we will think. However, it is perfectly in line with our traditional way of dealing with, the tradition. I mean, in a sense, how the historically how great thinkers, starting from Krishna all the way to Yagnavalkya, down to Shankaracharya or Vivekananda, or even any of the modern thinkers today, the methodology has been what Professor M. Hiriyana calls as critical conservatism. In the sense, you are respecting and valuing the past, you are taking the best of it. At the same time, you are being critical and objective so that we further improve on it. So he is not, we don't have the thing of throwing the baby with the bath water. It's
Yeah,
about
exactly.
accepting the tradition, valuing it. At the same time, we are trying to give it a better interpretation. So another classic case is when we have the Manusmriti, which is almost I think close to 3,000-year-old text. Now it's a kind of a law text, law digest written 3,000 years back. Naturally, it will not be applicable even after 200 years, 300 years in the same form. Therefore, the scores of commentators on Manusmriti, like Kuluka Bhatta and Medatithi, all the people who wrote commentaries, they did not say that Manu is wrong. What they said is Manu was right for that period. Maybe for this era, we can reinterpret this original statement to mean this ABCD. So today, if a commentary has to be written on Manusmriti, you will not be discarding all that because there will be some things which are outdated. So that I think that optimum thing we can see in Krishna, but because he is also a very close friend with Arjuna, he is not coming in such a polished manner, like sugar coating the thing. He is giving a direct slap on the face sometimes.
Yeah. Interestingly, of all our acharyas, only Vallabhacharya as people, his followers, the Pushti Margis, there are about 30 million of them in India, I think, 30 million. And he said, don't do any post-death rites, other than, of course, at the time of Antyeshti, take care of your parents well when they are alive. And he's the only Acharya who was telling there is it's now need for, these are all vestigial functions as far as he was concerned. Because if you look at the Apara Karma book, this is the Samskara Mahodati. Actually, it is the author of this. His father was our family Vatyar. This book is, you can look at how voluminous it is, and half of it is about the post-death rites. So it's you can see how elaborate it was. I kind of say that it's easier to build a pyramid than to follow this rule. You can go back and at least we have all the technology to build the pyramid. Luxor in Las Vegas, one of those casinos, they built it just like a pyramid. But this is a lot harder to replicate all the requirements here. Looks like somebody have any question, like Ashok Kumar? Or...
Yeah, I had a comment, if I may.
Yeah, Rashmi.
Yes. So I wanted to say, that he obviously, I'm just putting it in perspective with the lives we live. And how do I word this? I'm trying to get words. Obviously, Arjun was in a moral dilemma, because in real life, we are even afraid to, in my situation, I'm just going to say it that way, to answer back or say something that even though I know I'm right, and someone is in a position of power to say that, hey, you know what, you're wrong and I'm right. So imagine for him to actually think, to kill his own teacher and Bhishma Pitama and all of that. How daunting of a task it must be,
Yeah, that's
So
what
I
he was
just had that
expressing. Yeah,
comment.
that's what he was expressing. But he had fought them before, right? It is these are all warriors. In fact, it is said that a warrior is supposed to, he should not die on deathbed. He should die in a battlefield. So it is. I think he was telling that dharma will be lost, right? Dharme nashte kulam Krishna. Actually, not following his dharma, actually was already violating it. being not engaging in the battle. This is a Dharma Yuddha.
Also, interesting point is that we have similar concept in the Mahabharata itself. For example, if you remember in the Virata Parva, similar situation, Uttara Kumara is trying to run away from the battle, and Arjuna is the person who is trying to drag him, making all sorts of assurances, saying you have to fight, you are a Kshatriya, what's wrong with you, how can you run away from the battlefield, what will people back at home think. All the arguments and the points that Krishna is telling Arjuna in Gita, Arjuna has himself told. That means he is himself knowledgeable, aware of this. And then later, just after, I think, the Krishna Sandhana, maybe Koti can correct me, when Krishna goes to meet Kunti, Kunti then narrates a story of a weak prince whose mother shouts at him and sends him to battle. So, like this, there are multiple instances in the Mahabharata itself where there is a last minute, getting the cold feet. I don't think it is a very deep-seated, confusion, because as in the course of the 18 chapters itself, we see that pretty much by the 5th or 6th chapter, he is convinced. It's just that Krishna is in kind of flow, saying all these beautiful things. He doesn't want to interrupt. He wants to take this opportunity to learn more. But I think he's pretty much convinced in a few chapters. So it's not like a very serious issue. Maybe this is just my immediate reading.
Yeah, I think as we are discussing it, there are so many paths are given for liberation in Bhagavad Gita, right? We don't have any chapter saying Shraddha Tarpana Yogo Nama. There is nothing like that. There is no chapter like that, right? In fact, anyway, tomorrow we'll discuss the very first. He says we should not worry about living or the dead, he says. Anyway, and also Gita says, Uddare Atmana Atmanam. We have to advance ourselves by our own effort. We cannot eat for somebody. We cannot even CPR. You can breathe for them for a very short time. How long can you give CPR? And how can we eat for somebody else? Can we? No, we cannot breathe for somebody else. All those things. So how can we liberate somebody else? So it is. In fact, when my mom passed away, that one I participated. It's Murphy's Law. I did not participate for my father when he passed away, but my mom, I spent all the 12, 13 days. She is the one who had told me that don't do any of these things. So it's kind of interesting. My father was kind of opposite. My father was insisting, and she was telling you can do for him, but she was talking almost like Jesus. Being married to your father, the amount of these things I have done is sufficient for entire Hindu community. She said, nobody need to do this. She said, so that is kind of, she did not know Jesus died for other sins, but she said that she has done enough of these apara karmas, we call it, right? She has done this, that should be enough for humanity itself. And so if we see if it was, it's not that anything criticizing, it is more like if I didn't say happy birthday, it won't become a bad birthday. If I didn't say good morning, it won't become a bad morning. But it's so easy to say good morning, but these things are not that easy to practice. So it is, nothing bad will happen, but if you did it, the idea is if you didn't do it, it's basically how you feel. It is basically for our mental peace, I think. Some people feel they should do, and there is nothing wrong with it. In fact, the Shraddha Bodhanam is very tasty. I've enjoyed so much. I should not be, I'm almost tempted to open one as a franchise. And I can also play some music, Anna Suktam and things like that when they're eating food. And it's not a bad business plan. Maybe I can suggest my son to venture into it. I'm too old.
Hello, sir. This is Nagesh. I am a friend of your nephew, Bharat Koti, as well. Long time reader of the Bhagavad Gita, but trying to become a practitioner. So I have some questions that have been kind of, coming up in my head for a long time. So one of them is, Arjuna in this chapter asks a lot of questions, and we also know he was a learned person himself. So there should be some basis for the questions that he asks, right? Based on some other texts he might have read or something he might have learned from his gurus. So in that regard, his questions, even though we might say like they're not valid, but they have some basis for them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because these practices are there. Even today it is there, I told you, right? Because Mahabharata itself, Bhishma gives a big lecture on how to do all these things to Yudhishthira. Not that Arjuna was not making this up. It was part of the tradition. But the priority at this point, at this juncture, and also all of them are warriors too. If you go by the Veerasvarga, most of them died in the battlefield, so they should have already been in Swarga. So things like that. Yes, he definitely he did. This was there in the society. Definitely, it was there. But maybe its importance was getting. It was not as intense as Bhagirath Prayatna to redeem the ancestors. We don't see that happening again after that. That is in Ramayana, but. Definitely it is there. Even today it is there as we were talking. Yeah. I think
Okay.
it's 10:33 now. We can, any other question, we can take it up tomorrow. We can, okay.
Dhanyavada, sir.
Thank
so
you
much.
all. Yatho dharma tata Krishna, yata Krishna tatho dharma.
Thank you.
Dhanyavada, sir.
Namaste.
Thank you.